evening and welcome. Absolutely, yes. Tonight we're going to be talking all things ageism, how you feel about it. We want to know. We are going to be chatting with the fantastic Ageism is Never in Style. And we're really pleased and
it's a real honour to do this.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And I think as well because we both feel quite strongly about this.
Yeah, and it's something that resonates with us, and we know it resonates with you too.
Yeah, lots of you, definitely. But actually, you know, if you don't feel that ageism is a thing, then...
That's great.
Yeah, absolutely, that's
we're
great.
Really pleased for you.
And we really kind of want to know about that as well.
Yeah.
So, Jacynth, we're going to welcome in very, very soon. Let's have a look, see if she's on here already. I don't think she is, so we will keep chatting.
And if it doesn't, if you've got positive examples, that would be fabulous too.
That have been asked to us, which we're going to talk about. We're going to take questions. We want your views, etc. But right now, we are just going to get the lovely Jacynth in.
Yeah. Sorry, my camera's just decided to fall over just as I joined. So let's.
Of course it is.
We do that all the time.
Yeah. Not the camera, us personally.
Oh, I mean, like, is that going to stay straight? Is that going to stay straight? Okay. Is that slightly jaunty? Let's see.
Mate, it's honestly fine. Don't worry.
Just a bottle of wine behind it.
I don't know what's going on. Hang on. It might be the angle. Classic. The inevitabilities of being live.
Listen, always the way. Ageism is definitely a thing, somebody's saying.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
So I think the first thing that we need to address, because we both said this to you, didn't we, on a call before Christmas? We were like, okay, we need to ask you the question, address the elephant in the room. You know, amazing that you're doing this. You're so young. So why are you doing this?
Yes. So... right, let me get this. I'm just gonna...
Yeah, that's all right. Go on, you sort that out.
Hold it. Let's just hold it. There we go.
Okay. Yeah, but you're going to get dead arms, aren't you? You keep holding it that long.
We'll hold it for a bit and then I'll move it. Right. So, yes, in answer to your question, yes. So I'm 33 and I have been working in this space for over 10 years now. I actually had the idea back in 2012. I kind of had that light bulb moment around wanting to disrupt ageism and championing age inclusivity when I was 19. So quite a lot younger than a lot of people, I guess, talk about this sort of thing. And it really came from my mum. So my mum had me at the age of 40, and which of course is not old, but back in the early 90s was less common.
Yes.
And so I guess from quite a young age, first on a subconscious level, I was witnessing how my parents were older than a lot of my peers' parents. And then as I was getting older, into my teens, my mum and I have a mutual love of fashion and style. We'd go shopping all the time together. And yet it became more and more obvious how there were more options for somebody as a teenager who had no money than my mum in her 50s who loves style. As she says, a love for style doesn't just disappear just because I got older. I just want to look good, look good, flatter my body, look contemporary and stylish. But there were really not that many options for her. And I noticed how shop assistants were quite dismissive, making comments like, this is this really for you? Is this really appropriate? And my mum would almost have to. Well, there was one time we went to this fashion show, and somebody said it was a fashion designer, a relatively well-known one in the UK, and she said she designed for all shapes and sizes. Shocker! All the models were tall and slim and young.
Yeah, surprise.
And my mum went up to her and said, "Okay, what can I wear? What would you recommend from your collection for me?" And she just went, and bear in mind, this designer was known for her dresses and prints and colour. She pulled out this black shrug and just said this. And the worst thing is, my mum was so embarrassed she actually bought it. So I guess I witnessed that, and I witnessed how more and more of her peers were feeling that way. And then when I was at university, I was studying law, so totally different, thought I'd be a lawyer. And then I had this moment, literally at 2 a.m. one night, I couldn't sleep. And I thought, if I wanted to do something more entrepreneurial, what would it be? What would also have a positive impact? And I just started thinking about my mum. And that was where it all came from. I finished my degree. I started developing so Ageism is Never in Style was actually born out of my fashion brand, The Bias Cut, which was a real pioneer of age inclusion. And then we launched Ageism as Never in Style as a community platform. That just grew and grew and grew. The Bias Cut does still exist, but it's not a primary focus anymore. We've uncoupled the two. And that's really where it's come from. But it's interesting, as somebody pointed out in the comments already, whilst I entered this space seeing myself almost as an ally, I realized more and more as I educated myself exactly what people were saying. One of the biggest misconceptions around ageism is that it's only towards people as they get older. Ageism is purely prejudice or discrimination on the grounds of age. So any person at any age can experience it. Younger people do too. And somewhat ironically, the most ageism I've personally faced has been in this space because people have said you're too young. Yeah.
So you can't possibly know.
Yeah. So, and I think with women, let's be honest, you can't, is there really ever a right age? But it's been interesting. There have been major magazines, media platforms, things like that, who have asked me to pretend somebody older was my boss. They said, could you, we'd love to feature your work. And, you know, we have a content creator and a modeling network, and we want to celebrate that and all these things. But you can't be anywhere near it, Jacynth, because you're too young. So so for me, it's about reframing aging for everyone and eliminating bias for all of us, basically.
So at the very heart of this, at the very root, where does this feeling or where does this ageism come from? Is it generated from that we get older and we're heading towards the coffin? And so there is a fear base in there. Is that the root of it? Or where in your experience, what's the root of it?
I mean, it's a really complicated one to unpick. There's three forms of ageism: internalized ageism, interpersonal ageism, and institutional ageism. So internalized is how basically we feel about ourselves, we internalize the messages. And studies have found it's actually we internalize ageist stereotypes from as young as the age of 4. So that's things like Disney, you know, with the evil old witch. Things like birthday cards. I mean, if you go to a shopping, look at birthday cards. Once they get to kind of over 35, 40, I mean, if you notice it, they're all pretty much negative around getting older. Anti-aging creams, all that sort of thing. So that's internalized. Then interpersonal is how we engage and how we interact with other people. Even backhanded compliments like, oh, you look good for your age. We know that one. Or, you know, you still got it. Or even hidden through microaggressions, humor. And then systemic are things that are much more within policy in institutions, things like mandatory retirement, things like that. And we do live in a youth-centric society, absolutely. So a lot of, as we said, even though ageism can be experienced at any age, a lot of ageism, or at least the most overt forms, are towards people as they get older. I mean, I actually give lectures on it. I'm sure I make a lot of people go to sleep around this topic. I find it fascinating, but I give lectures to university students because I think we should educate people on this at all ages. And we can trace back on our obsession with youth, and as you say, our fear of death, because that's essentially what it is. Back to, you know, like, I think it's like Ponce de Leon and the Fountain of Spring, you know, 5th century BCE or something. So it's crazy, you know, how far it dates back. And throughout history, there's things like Elizabethan women used raw meat as anti-aging. There was a baroness in Hungary who used to bathe in the blood of virgins to try and reverse aging. I mean, it literally goes throughout history, particularly in Western culture. There is a separate conversation, or not separate because they're connected, but about how traditional Eastern culture might be perceived as being less ageist. It actually does have ageism. It just sometimes is in slightly different forms. It's not quite as binary as that. But you know, in the 20th century, the golden age of Hollywood, industrialization, the boom of the teenager and the baby boomers, you know, in the 50s, 60s, all of that compounded our obsession with youth. So that's what really then made kind of the industries hone in on it. And actually the term anti-aging was coined in the 80s as a marketing term.
So, well, that's what I'm going to ask you about marketing. So, I mean, you know, we've obviously had this conversation because we want to kind of collectively try and change things, perhaps. And listen, I'll be the first to put my hands up and say, you know, look, I want to look the best I can and be the best that I can for the age that I currently am. And I will continue to do that. Absolutely. I don't like the word anti-aging. I really don't. I prefer pro-aging. I mean, we've spoken about potentially coming up with an idea for other things, which we'll maybe talk about at another time. But do you think, I mean, you say it's been going on for years and years, ageism, but, you know, do you think with marketing, it's so much worse?
It's particularly bad at the moment, or these recent years.
Well, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But I think we got a little bit better for a while, but it was almost like from beauty brands, you know, we dipped our toe in, and fashion brands, we've dipped our toe in, we've done our bit, off we go.
Yeah.
And I get that marketeers have a budget. And so, you know, they've kind of got to appeal to the majority. Well, if you took the majority, the average age of a living person is going to be between 40 and 50, right? So where is the average person? Or do you take a bit of each and you kind of appeal maybe to the 20s, the 50s, but also the 80s and above, because people are living longer.
They're living longer. I mean, my view is that actually, and there's more and more data and research being done around this, that it should be around an intergenerational approach. So championing different ages and looking at life stage rather than just numbers, looking at values, interests, priorities. There's actually a really interesting piece of research being done at the University of Kent that has found that younger audiences do not get put off by older models. They might actually think the clothing is not age appropriate, which is ageist in itself, to be very clear. But from a commercial standpoint, it's not going to stop them from buying. So the problem is there are a lot of brands who will say, well, no, we have to feature younger models and focus on youth because that's what sells. That's what people want. Actually, when I was developing my business back in 2014, I was doing research, and about 50% of those I surveyed who were women over 40 said they did not want to see models their age or older. And I really thought, oh my gosh, I've got something totally wrong here. You know, I thought, you know, representation is so important. But actually, it was their internalized bias when I did more diving into it, because we're so used to seeing age represented in a certain way. So I think it's got, there's a kind of an ecosystem at play here where you've got brands and advertisers who've got this really outdated approach. Actually, there's, again, more data coming out that they're realizing it's outdated, but they don't really know how to address it. Well, that's a bit lazy.
I do think as well, though, within marketing and social media, where it's not been around a lot, social media, a lot of the people that are kind of doing these roles are maybe 40 and below. And I know that because I did it at Benefit Cosmetics at the head office for many years. And I used to get 60, 70, 80-year-old models included.
And that's exactly what I was saying. So the next element is the reality that advertising is very ageist and youth-centric as an industry. So exactly that. There's a lot of people working in the industries who just do not get it. Now, I like to say, you know, I'm 33. I like to think I've managed to listen and engage. So I don't think it's an excuse to just say they're younger and therefore they're not going to understand it. What it is they have to be able to be educated and invest in that education, and actually have, again, that intergenerational approach where we need teams that are balanced of different ages that can bring lots of different perspectives, innovation, and ideas. I think the third thing at play is, and it all interconnects, is again back to that education point when you said exactly about this sort of superficial tokenistic approach where we've seen kind of dipping the toe in and then moving on. The problem is that some of them have done it inauthentically in the first place because they didn't really have the deep reason and understanding why to do it. Then there's another element, which is we are so fixated because we do a lot of work in the commercial space with companies internally. Unfortunately, the economies are not doing great right now. Retail is not doing great. They're so fixated on quarterly returns and shareholders. They don't actually give things the time to breathe. They don't give things the time to develop, to evolve, to listen, to learn, to respond. So what we then see is a lot of, I've seen, and we've talked about this too, campaigns that maybe they think is trying to appeal to somebody in their 40s or 50s, but they've executed it poorly. And so they've gone, oh, that audience doesn't want it, then bye, move on, see you later. Rather than actually analysed, no, it wasn't the audience that's the issue, it was the execution that was the problem.
Yes. Yeah,
And so, but they don't have the time. I've spoken to, there's some very big brands out there who've done some campaigns, who have built good favour in this space, who I know have said to me this year they're thinking they're going to drop it because they're concerned it hasn't delivered the results that they wanted.
You know, and it is, and I know firsthand that brands will turn around and say, let's get them young, let's appeal to.
They'll think they'll be with you forever, won't they?
You see, and my argument always is, and there is no loyalty anymore. Yes, absolutely. As a brand, you need to plant a seed, your name. It's all about brand awareness, and I totally get that. But there is no loyalty anymore because everybody wants like the latest trend on TikTok or, you know, so it doesn't matter even if you're, you know, I mean, you can actually make a brand overnight if something goes viral and you brought out one product. So that's what it's about now. And that's, I think, what is really frustrating. But do you know what the other thing is? I talk about my mum being, you know, 80 this year, and your mum.
My mum, 2 weeks,
Both incredible women, so active. They love their fashion, they love their beauty. You know, they are incredible.
And they don't want to be defined as because they're 80.
No, but so. And I always say, you know, my mum will always get pure cremations and Stannah stair lifts or whatever, you know, or a recliner chair. I get that the majority of people at that age and above or whatever need those items. So I get it. Those companies are not going to advertise to 18 to 25 or whatever. 40 and under, you mean? Yeah, they're not going to do that. So there is, you know, there has got to be some kind of cut-off point, if you like. But I think when it comes to beauty, fashion, holidays, it doesn't really, if you like it, you know, we were talking about this, weren't we, with the holiday? It's a bit like Saga Holidays. They advertise predominantly to older people. But, you know, if you're in your 30s and Saga Holidays has got everything that you want.
Your perfect holiday.
Absolutely.
You choose them.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, so the funny thing is, because of the work I do, and which again speaks volumes about what they assume somebody who does my work is age, I get the ads. I get all those ads. I get the pure cremation. I get the algorithm thinks I'm a lot older. So I see all those ads, and I think it is about, as you say, I never say age is irrelevant in its entirety. It's not about being blind to age. It's about reframing if, when, where, and how age is relevant. And the reality is there are going to be things that mean biologically one's body may need some more support as one gets older. So, as you say, completely on point. The reality is they're going to go with the odds, the percentage that, you know, you're going to advertise those products to certain age groups. However, again, looking at different values, interests, there's balance. I mean, I hate the term, my mum hates the term. We went to see a film at our local cinema, and it was a silver screening. So it was like discounted for over 60s, which it just happened to be the time that suited me and my mum. I couldn't believe they handed out blankets, and the ad were just for things like that. And I thought, I don't normally see ads like this. What is going on? Where was the fashion? Where was the beauty? You know, all these different things. Exactly. And it's got to be much more looking at the values interest side of it and having that balanced approach, rather than just going, okay, so you're this age group, which means, well, it's a very outdated method of treating different age groups, very as a homogenous group, isn't it? Basically, you go, oh, you're all the same. And sadly, we still see it. 50 plus are all the same, even though there's as much diversity as one gets older than as there is when you're younger, if not more. And then, going down that approach. But I do think that one other thing I do want to bring back to, though, is also the power of the consumer, because we're talking about how we're dipping the toe in and then brands have moved on. I think we have to also acknowledge our role with brands, that if we want to show them we only want to shop with you if you stand by my values, if you represent, if you see me for who I am, and being age inclusive. We've got to then actually shop with that in mind and purposely decide, I will not shop with this brand if they don't do this, because ultimately what they care about at the end of the day is their bottom line. So
but that would be having to do it en masse, and to get the mass numbers to make to affect their bottom line.
But that's where
that's a
our
big
platforms
ask.
can come in. We can, be advocates for, we've seen it with members of our community who've said, I've actually messaged a brand and said, please, could you change your language with anti-aging? And they've actually got in touch with us and had conversations, and we've managed to get some brands to drop it. So it can happen. I appreciate it's a big task, but I think it's important that that's where it comes back to being a whole ecosystem. If we advocate and are saying, why is this, we love this brand, will you start being more representative of women my age, but then you still shop with them, why are they going to really change?
Do you see a positive effect for somebody like Nina, who does a lot of fashion, so on the influencer front, and we know a lot of people who do the same kind of age group?
Nina's such
do you see the positive impact of that?
We definitely see brands coming to us more and more saying, we've seen this, we can see it's the power of somebody like yourself who actually not only represents, but your audience trusts you. Your audience listens to you. It's not just a flash in the pan post. We've talked about it. We've talked about how much you do not work with brands that you do not believe in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that actually, so it's interesting. Even just the other day, I had a big brand reach out to me and said, I messaged them over a year ago saying, this is what we do, would love to have a conversation. Didn't really hear anything. And then last week they messaged us going, we've been talking, we've been seeing more, we've seen some more, it's a cumulative effect. Influencers, content creators, media talking about it. And we've talked about it, and we'd actually like to have another conversation and pick it up. It's not going to happen overnight.
No, but this is why we always say to our community, if you see something and you like it, not just by us, by anybody in the creator space that is out there trying to actually make a change, like it,
engage on it,
because that tells brands
that you're here.
And do you know what? When I've had that, and I've actually put a reel out about this before, look, if you like it, please like the post, and other people that don't really get it.
Said, the advertising,
you're just them. But people are saying, or people will say, the odd few will go, well, you're just saying that to get more likes. I'm telling you now, it's about telling the marketing team, the head office people that actually
we're here.
Yeah, I like it. I do like it, because when you just scroll past it, whether it be an ad or just content that's not an ad, when you just scroll past it, what does that tell a brand? Oh, well, she only got 50 likes. It's like they don't give a shit. They don't care.
The reality is they are a business, and it sounds awful to say this, but what they care about is their bottom line. They don't feel they owe anything to anybody. I mean, I'd like to think that businesses should have a corporate social responsibility, but the reality is they are a business, and they are beholden to their board, to their shareholders. And so if they're going to have, you have to have, sounds awful, but hit them where it hurts.
Or show absolutely.
Them
I hear you.
And those numbers make a difference.
But I do hear you.
One of the questions, should we go on to one of the ones that people
Sorry, we've been chatting for 25 minutes already. We've not really taken any questions yet. I've been pinning as we go, kind of thing. But so do men experience ageism, or is it just women?
So absolutely, men experience it. What a lot of work that we look at is gendered ageism. So that is the intersectionality between gender and ageism. So it means, essentially, because we live in a patriarchal society, it layers on top of each other. Ageism doesn't really exist in isolation in a lot of ways. It actually intersects with all forms of discrimination and exacerbates it. So a lot of work we do looks at how it intersects with ableism. A lot of ageism is actually ableism. How it intersects with racial bias, socioeconomic backgrounds, LGBTQ+, all these different things. they really do merge. And actually, it's really interesting when we give talks to organizations on their D&I, I will say, when you've looked at other areas, have you ever looked at age within that? And they say no.
No.
But
No,
when you
but I
actually
think we've
present it, they
become
go, oh my God.
so.
We're used to
Yeah,
it.
But I think as well we have become so good,
yeah,
becoming more inclusive when it comes to, race, even with body image, etc. We still need to keep banging on about it, but I
right.
do think they've got it right. I just want to actually call out when we were talking about age, etc., and like people that do it right. I tell you, who's amazing, and have totally got it spot on. Never fully dressed.
They do a good job. I would
They,
say I'd like to see a bit more diversity of their older representation. They've
yeah,
got some
okay,
fabulous people.
yeah,
I'd like to see some more
but.
diversity amongst the older representation, but
Yeah,
they
but I
do
tell you
overall do a
what,
good
if
job.
there is a brand to look for and
Mm.
people within marketing to know how to get it right, that is a bloody good place to start
They do
because
do a good job, yeah.
yeah, they
Yeah.
do a cracking job. Yeah, very, very good.
And Brown as well, and Brown with JD Williams,
Yes.
Ambrose. They do a really good job. Interestingly, I see So Over 50 has said, they excuse lack of inclusion as a cost factor. I mean, that's the
Sorry,
thing.
can you say that again?
Sorry, and so someone said, So Over 50 has said, I've messaged brands, they excuse lack of inclusion as a cost factor. Why not combine ethnicity, size, and age? Completely agree. That's the thing, is they often look at age, and you do still see age representation through one lens, which is often Caucasian, tall, slim, long grey hair.
Yeah.
And actually, I know a lot of models in the industry have said that their casting call is just granny, and they got called it, regardless. Whether they've got kids or grandchildren, they're just neighbor. It's
I'm
just a
really
casting call.
shocked by that. That's probably really naive of me, but I'm really shocked at
That's
that.
still to this day, that's what they get. So there's still, the issue with the lack of inclusion being a cost factor, absolutely, sadly, it is. And that's where, again, we have to show that they do all their analysis, they do all their analytics, the algorithms, they work out what images sell. I mean, they literally will see a picture if you go on an e-commerce site, they will see what gets clicked more versus not, and then they'll change it if it doesn't work, things like that. So we have to show, like you were saying earlier, with liking, engaging, clicking, show that we care, because that affects all of those numbers,
Yes,
and that will make
absolutely.
a difference.
100%. And I know firsthand, that when something's gone well, brands will come back and go, yeah, we want to work with you again.
Right,
But
exactly.
and it's just the way it works, isn't it? But that is a form of marketing, and that is also a form of kind of going, right, there you go. Yes, it works.
Open the floor up.
So over, is that what you were saying about the inclusion over
Yes,
50?
and then they
Yes.
see, it says,
Yeah.
inclusion seems to mean everyone except older people. Yeah, exactly. And it's very interesting when we do, as I say, D&I talks in companies. I actually gave one a couple of months ago at a leading healthcare provider in the UK, and it was 90 minutes on ageism, which I can talk, but that's a long time for
Yeah, that is
anybody.
a long time. Yeah.
And I was told they were quite a quiet group. But I wouldn't get a lot of engagement, but just to talk. So I talked, and then I had pauses, which they, unsurprisingly, as I was warned, they didn't say anything. And then when we got to intersectionality, and I asked those questions, like, you've had talks on ethnicity, you've had talks on LGBTQ plus.
Yeah, yeah,
Has
yeah.
you ever looked at age? They
Yeah.
went no, and the hands shot up. So I think it's interesting if you can reframe age as everyone. That's why one of our values this year is age inclusion includes you.
Yeah.
Includes you by simply being alive. Ageism
Yes.
doesn't just start at
Yeah,
40,
someone just
50,
put that
60.
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. It starts the moment we step foot on this
Yeah.
earth. And
Yeah.
so we can show that it actually is the one universal
Okay.
experience that unites all of us. That's how we suddenly can get everyone to engage in a different way.
Yeah, like that. Lee Cook, ageism tells us we are too old to dream, to feel young and to live freely. Age is a mindset, not a number. Do you know what? There is a insurance company that have put out an advert at the moment, and it's
Stay
brilliant.
sure? Is it Stay Sure?
Yes,
Yes, it is.
yes, it
Yeah,
is.
that's exactly what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
how good is that? Do you know, I messaged them, I slid into their DMs and I said, I just want to congratulate you because it's brilliant. You've made it fun, you've made people go, do you know what? You don't just have to go away and do this. If you want to go away and bloody, do a bungee jump or whatever, go
Right.
and do it. It was so
It's a really
inspiring.
positive
Yes, dream
influence.
big. We were chatting with them at the end of last year. We actually emailing them today. So,
Yeah,
watch this
good.
space, hopefully.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yes,
brilliant.
that, as you say, and going back to what we said at the very beginning around the intersection, how there's the three forms of ageism. The thing is that we talk a lot about representation and interpersonal ageism, but a lot of it is how we internalize it. And so we speak to so many people who the reality is they've put limitations on themselves unconsciously because of their age.
Yeah.
So it's about kind of opening up our mindsets. We actually did a collaboration with Sun Life, who of course Sun Life does, have that, reputation. In, we've known about their over 50s life insurance, but they've really been working on this idea of building confidence. And we shared a wonderful story, it's pinned on our grid at the moment, about Karen, a lady in our community, who nearly drowned when she was 10. And then she decided to take up wild swimming as a new hobby at 59.
Brilliant.
And so it's never too late.
Sorry, I'm just having a look. My husband turned 45 and nothing changed. Hold on 1 minute, sorry. My husband turned 45 and nothing changed. I turned 45 and I immediately got treated differently. I wasn't, but 45 was the year, and each year since I get more and more placed in a role in society. Yeah, a lot of people feel that way, don't they? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. What have I just done? There we go.
Well, that's the thing is, it is so one of the things that when we look at gendered ageism is the archetypal life stage that women go through based on folklore compared to men. So a man's three life stages are, and again, this is what folklore and culture said: youth, warrior, sage. Whereas a woman's is maid, mother, crone.
Sorry, what is this for again?
This is what folklore, the life course of what a man versus a woman goes through, historically, based in culture, in narratives and stories. So basically, a woman is entirely reduced to her perceived reproductive capabilities, service to men, to reproduce, things like that. So hence exactly where a lot of women do struggle far more as they get older. There's a fantastic activist called Ashton Applewhite. She's kind of the godmother of the ageism activism movement in the US. She's a good friend, and she's a fierce activist, and she says ageism is the first form of discrimination that a white, middle-class, able-bodied, heterosexual man will experience. Because that's the first form of bias that will come his way. Whereas if you've got, disabilities, if you've got, different gender, all these things. So it's quite interesting how absolutely men experience ageism, but
and that's why the patriarchy is what it is.
Yes, we have to understand that there are different experiences and challenges based on different identities with us.
Do you know, it's really interesting actually when we put the post out about doing this live, about all the sort of comments and how, people felt about ageism. And it's huge, isn't it? It's absolutely huge how people feel. I think it's a real low number of people that
aren't affected by it.
Yeah.
And as you said earlier, life expectancy is getting longer and longer. So, at what point does it flip? I mean, I know you're saying it's intergenerational, but at what point does the average person really start to feel it and it starts affecting their life? And that may be in their 30s, might be in their 40s, but they may still have another 50, possibly 60 years to go of feeling the effects of ageism in society.
Exactly. I mean, so statistically, Centre for Aging Better, the charity, they found that I think it was about 47% of people over the age of 50 said they experienced ageism in the last year. However, interestingly, the group most likely to say they experienced ageism were 18 to 28-year-olds, and that was about 78% had said they felt it. The UN has also found that 1 in 2 people hold heavily ageist beliefs. I would argue more than that. Most of us have that bias within us in some form or another. But as you point out with living longer, we have got an aging population. So not only are people living longer, but birth rates are dropping. Yeah. Even countries that are younger are still aging. So what we're seeing definitely is more organizations and companies realizing the economic imperative to address age bias. So by 2030, nearly 50% of the workforce will be over the age of 50. If we do not address bias, address attitudes, address ageism, we're going to have a huge untapped talent pool. We already do. I think the UK government did a study and found it was costing us hundreds of millions in ageism costing hundreds of millions with untapped workforces, lack of retention, things like that because of ageism. And age discrimination payouts have gone up by 624% in the last year.
That's huge.
I know that's a lot of stats, and I appreciate it's a bit of a heavy stat, but when you present all of that, it's costing us so much that we have to tackle it both as a social imperative and, frankly, as an economic one.
Yeah, somebody's saying that path of the plunge, definitely economic base being ignored.
Exactly.
So in your experience and the companies that you work with, do you see attitudes changing? Do you see an uplift in them taking this matter seriously and looking at ways where it will stop affecting their workforce or what they produce?
Yes, I mean, I think progress is never linear, as you were saying. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And it really depends on, so it's interesting, there are some companies that really promote themselves as very diverse and as a core value of theirs. They are not interested in looking at age at all. Whereas there are others who are going, hang on, there is something going on. We have up to 5 generations working in the workplace. We're seeing a lot of generational tension, so we need to address some issues here. We kind of look at it, interesting, quite a lot of people have said to me that the companies that moved first with gender diversity are the ones moving first generally with age diversity. So they're the ones who are having the foresight to go, hang on a second, there's something that needs to be addressed here. If I really look back compared to 10 years ago, goodness me, the progress has been huge. I mean, literally, I'm sure, I hope you've seen it too. I remember going to trade shows and saying, have you ever thought about a 40-year-old modeling this? And the brands would recoil in horror. There are actually, again, quite a few brands who admitted to me that their core customer were over 40s, but they didn't want to say that out loud. So
I've had that, and I've actually had brands that I work with admit that.
So there's definitely a very, very long way to go. But I would say that we're seeing, I mean, the increase, the momentum, now there's Ageism Awareness Day, there's Global Intergenerational Week. I don't like the fact that everything has to be pinned on a day, but the point is that they actually do give scope for these conversations. But it is still a long way to go. There's more and more companies setting up employee resource groups that are around age. I definitely think I'm seeing more of an authentic, targeted effort when it comes to workforce and talent than I am with marketing. I think the marketing side is still more often not that superficial. Like we said, they'll do a campaign, gain good favour and move on.
With like, so say like the LGBT community, obviously that's got bigger over the years because we have trans, we have queer, so brilliant. Do you feel like with ageism there should be something, like we were saying, or diversity, sorry. So companies say, we are real diverse, but under that diverse umbrella comes disabilities, comes race, comes size inclusivity, comes ageism. It's almost like there needs to be the word diversity, but under there we need to have.
So a lot of companies do have that, but so I think PwC did a study and found that of those companies that had diversity and inclusivity statements, only 8% included age. The issue is that there's been a massive pullback around D&I because of Trump. So a lot of companies.
Sorry, when you say D&I, can you explain?
Sorry, diversity and inclusivity. So
Thank you.
Diversity and inclusivity pillars. Some call it diversity, equity, and inclusion. Some call it some of them now call it culture and belonging because they don't want to use the word diversity and inclusion because of the fact that it's gone very regressive with what's happened with, as I say, with Trump. It's been very interesting seeing, somebody was telling me who has a big company that is a great advocate for LGBT, their work halved over Pride last year because of it.
Mhm.
So yes and no. I think there's now a conversation around the problem was diversity and inclusion for some companies was siloed and was again a bit box ticking and didn't integrate into the rest of the company. So companies used it as a tool to be performative, to say these are our commitments around diversity and inclusion, but didn't do much beyond that. So I think now it's about integrating, but that's where these employee resource groups, which companies have, which are internal networks that further the causes internally, and they have they're quite small. They don't have a huge amount of influence, but they can have influence up the chain.
Yeah.
That's where there's ones coming in with age, or they call it generations. So some say age, some say generations. We're working with LinkedIn, for example. LinkedIn have one around it, which is good. So we're doing some work with them. And we actually have a big global report coming out in a couple of months with a massive data marketing agency through their age network internally. So they are coming up the ranks.
Okay.
But
Cool.
there's a long way to go. And the reality is, sadly, it often comes down to needing people in the boards and who are CEOs and on C-suite who buy into it to get it.
Totally. Path of the plunge. How are we going to address brands, companies moving forward to treat ageism as development, show capable and evolving? Style belongs to people, not timelines, as in age timelines. I'm assuming you're saying, but yes, absolutely. Style does belong to people, and there's all sorts of people out there, all walks of life, at all different ages.
Picking up on how people advertise. So we see it all the time on TV adverts and on editorial, where a specific brand might be advertising their latest cream to do whatever it does to your face.
Yes.
And I'm sure we've all had that moment, or I know I have, totally guilty of it, when I've looked at the person on the advert and gone, well, you don't need it because you're like 20 or whatever. And I get from what you were saying earlier that, you know, that ageism starts quite young. And I feel that if it's geared towards my age group, it should be the person on the screen should be my
Obviously,
age group.
it's such a no-brainer, right?
But
Yes.
what is it? Why do they think that we are going to be? Because the way I feel like they think I'm going to be repulsed by seeing somebody my own age. Whereas actually, I'm doing handstands over in the back here because I'm thinking, whoa.
Or maybe they're thinking if they use a younger model, maybe they think we're daft enough to go, oh,
That's
been
what it
using
does.
that, and that's amazing because now you look like 30.
My phrase is aspirational, not delusional. Right?
Absolutely, great.
So you might want to, beauty and fashion is aspirational. We want to aspire to be the best versions of ourselves, but we're not deluded to think we're going to put a cream on and suddenly look 20 years younger. And I completely agree. I think it is a lot. I remember speaking to a mentor who was telling me that she was in, I think, her early 30s at the time. And sadly, she was in a boardroom mostly of men, and it was about anti-aging creams, and they spoke to her as if she was the expert on it, only because she was the only woman. So, you know, the reality is that I think it is that, sadly, that youth-centric bias that, I mean, we did some research with Vogue Business, and it showed that, you know, again, the word anti-aging, it's not landing with the traditional audience of, you know, midlife women. So I mean, I find it particularly concerning, the toxic impact of it with preventative aging, that like 8-year-olds and 15-year-olds are using anti-aging products. So I mean, to me, it's just it's a bloody no-brainer. But then again, I thought this was a no-brainer when I was 19, and I learned very quickly that there were a lot of closed doors at the time. I mean, we're on the same page. So I think one of the things that I love, so I see Deborah Joe has mentioned Cracking the Age Code by Becca Levy. So Becca Levy's at the University of Yale, and she's done some fantastic research. And the one that really just is mind-blowing is that a positive attitude to aging can increase your life expectancy by up to 7.5 years.
That's quite a lot
of time, right?
Yeah.
And that is just, you know, not buying. It might sound easy to them, but just not buying into anti-aging rhetoric, for example, can make a difference.
I think our mums are a prime example.
Yeah, totally. But just the word anti as well. It's so negative. It's creating that negativity before you've even got
And
through your 20s.
let's be honest. I mean, okay, I know there's a lot, and longevity is a word that's now everywhere, and it is it's now a catch-all, and it's been a bit co-opted by biohacking and reversing aging and all that sort of thing. Doubt whether it's true that they're finding, and I still think it's a bit the actual research that is at a cellular level being able to stop or reverse aging. The reality is chronological aging is not impossible to stop. We are all aging. There is nothing on this planet that's getting any younger. So let's stop saying anti-aging, because what does it really mean? That's actually where the phrase why cottoned on was. They realized that anti-aging really means jackal. And so it can be such a catch-all for things. It can really mean anything for different people. It's just a bit of a mere marketing term that, as you say, is basically feeding into these ideas from such a young age that you're gonna. I mean, I felt it, and I work in this space every single day. When I hit, I mean, it sounds ridiculous. I hit 25 until people started saying to me, "You're going to start with your anti-aging cream now? Are you going to?" I was asked if I was going to get Botox soon. All these things. So it's just, but what does it really mean? How can you be anti-aging? Then are you anti-living? No. So
No, but I love that actually. That is such a good point, because, like you just said, then nothing is getting younger. So why anti-aging? Nothing is getting younger. I really like that actually, and that's so true, because you're just going against the grain of the universe.
Exactly. So
Nothing's changing.
I went to an event by the UKRI, the UK Research Institute, I think is what it stands for, and it was on longevity. And it was interesting because my view of longevity, and we do use the word, is in the context of not just living longer, but improving the quality of our lives as we live longer. It's not for us about biohacking and reversing aging and things like that. But for some people at this event, it genuinely meant stopping death. And they see death as the enemy. There was also talk about moving to Mars. Fine, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But I sort of said, but death is what makes life worth living, isn't it? So to stop that surely is, I don't know, there's that that TV show The Good Place, and when they show that they don't really have any purpose even in The Good Place to be, it just actually gets dull and boring.
I can see both points there, because actually if I could stop people from dying, I would, because it's so upsetting, isn't it? So I get that point of view, but you're right. If we know we're going to be here forever, would we
value what we have?
Yeah, possibly not. Well, actually, we wouldn't, because we would just take everything for granted.
Yeah. Do you know what? Can I just say, we've really taken no questions, and everyone, because we've been chatting about it, which is amazing, and people have been putting statements there. But should we read out a few of the things that people said?
And then the privilege to get older is, but I talk about my parents, but also being my inspiration. I lost one of my closest friends at 17 to cancer. So that obviously is something that I always think is she did not have the privilege to get older.
No, and aging is a privilege. Mam Chooch has put that there. Exactly. It's so true. Yeah.
So let's go through some more.
Alison, she's saying we need to ask the brands, why isn't our age group represented in their advertising? Also ask the brands who spends the most money with them and who are their loyal customers. After working for a cosmetic brand for 20 years, I can tell you it's not the 20 to 40-year-olds. 40 plus are the ones that spend the most and are most loyal to a brand, if there is loyalty. But sadly, we do not get the recognition. It's true.
It's true. Well, I mean, maybe that's the thing. We need to stop being so loyal. Be willing to try a different brand. Look for some other brands, move across, and show them. I know members of our community have actually said to some major brands, "I'm not shopping with you anymore," because I've been quite offended by some of your commentary actually about. And then there was one case where somebody DM'd a brand, or put it so they commented just saying, "I love your products, but could you stop focusing so much on youth?" They got so defensive, and it was a real backlash.
Oh, we've had that a lot. Yeah, we've had that. We've actually
panic. I think that means they're panicking because they realise that their tried and tested, outdated methods aren't working anymore.
You know what? We all love beauty. We all love fashion. We all love to cook. We all love shopping. Whatever it is, We all bloody love it. So show it to a teenager that starts to have a part-time job, right up to bloody, oh, honestly.
But actually, what Alison was saying is what we covered earlier. You know, if everybody does it enough and reaches out to companies and say it's not good enough, if enough people do that and it starts affecting their bottom line, that's when they're going to sit up and take notice.
Okay, but honestly, you love a product so much, would you give it up?
If I loved it, even though I didn't agree with their perhaps how they honestly, I don't know. And that's why I asked the question earlier, because of what Alison said. I'm probably guilty of going, okay, oh well, I like this anyway. And I know I am, but I'm also guilty of doing this self-talk in my head and getting up in the morning and going, oh, not bad for an old girl. And I know I do that too.
You know, Ashton Applewhite says, just waking up and not feeling bad about being a day older is a radical act. So it takes a lot of effort and energy. I do think my husband actually, he said to me, so my husband's 45, and he said, Jacynth, I believe in your work so much. I love this eye cream, but I'm not buying it anymore because it uses anti-aging language on it. So we spent a good number of months trying to find a good eye cream for him that actually didn't use those words. All he wanted was depuffing. He didn't need the anti-aging. And you know, it took somebody found the brand they wanted to. He did do it, but
were you just looking at it based for men?
No.
So just a general product to do it. Okay.
I don't care if it's for a woman, for a man. I just want it. And it took a long time, but you know, and that did take commitment, but I appreciated it a lot. But you know, the person that I really admire is, do you know Karen Franklin? She was the presenter of the show. Yeah. So I heard a talk by her. She was actually on we did a limited series podcast, and she was on it, and she talked about the power of one. And this is slightly anecdotal, but it is relevant. So she, in the noughties, was very much advocating against Terry Richardson, the famous photographer. He also was the director of Miley Cyrus's Wrecking Ball music video. But he was known internally in the industry as being a sexual predator. But everyone was working with him. It was an open secret, but no one seemed to care. Celebrities, magazines, everyone worked with him. And she said she literally got to the point where she was knocking on people's doors. You know, she's a big voice and advocate and, you know, respected person in the industry, going, why are you working with this man? And people weren't interested in listening. Then in, what was it, 2000, was it when Me Too happened and Harvey Weinstein, the fire lit, and she wrote to, I think it was the Times, and said, can I now write this piece? And they said, yeah. And that has mean he's completely been discredited from the industry and no one works with him anymore. And then she said that was the power of one. Now, granted, she, you know, she's a privileged position. She's got a voice. She's got a platform. But what it really inspired me was knowing if you just keep going, the movement will take off. There are sparks and the flame will eventually light. And that's when, and we've seen it with other movements.
Yeah, I think the sad thing about that
will light up.
Yeah, the sad thing about that really is that if it hadn't been for the Me Too Harvey Weinstein issue, would they have said yes to her ever?
No, she admits
and that's really bad.
And that is so terrible. True. And she said that that's the thing, she tried and they weren't interested. And so, yes, absolutely, that's very problematic. But I think what we can hopefully try and take from it is if more of us keep pushing it for what we know is right and the social and the cultural change, they will have to listen in one way or another eventually.
It's not a question, but it is a comment, and I think it's really worthwhile. JP Vintage Candles said, I think we should just be who we want to be, dress how we want to be, and just enjoy life the best we can. I think certain generations think we should act our age. It's just a number when we still feel young inside. And I think that that's probably what a lot of people in our group would say, you know, and I'm the first to hold up to it. Yes, there are some mornings I get up and I think, oh my God, my knees. But for the most part, my brain doesn't feel any different to it did 20, even 30 years ago.
That's a lie.
I forget things. I forget things. But do you know what? Yeah, no. But on the general, how I feel and how I perceive the world and what I look at feels the same.
Yes, I totally agree with that.
But would you say, if you said the thing, right? But you feel the age you are, you just don't feel the age society tells you to feel at that age. Do you see the difference?
Bingo. Yeah.
And interestingly, though, actually, slightly contradicting that, though, again, Soz, I'm all about the research and the data. Sorry about this, the stat. But they have found that our mental capacity and brain cognitive functions of a 70-year-old today is equal to what a 50-year-old was in the year 2000. So that does show that actually, you know, with health, with longevity, all these things, we are getting, we are getting younger. I don't know. But I think it's about
We're definitely getting younger.
But
I
it's
think
also about reframing what it means to be that age. That's why we did the campaign, I Look My Age 2 years ago. What does it mean to look your age? What does it mean to feel your age? You just feel who you are. And that's where, again, age isn't as relevant.
And it is funny because I had both my maternal grandparents until they were 99 and 98 when they died. But I remember my nanny at 80 was a very different person to my mum, who turns 80 in 2 weeks.
Yes,
you know, my mum goes to the gym every day. She goes to Zumba 3 times a week. She's always out with the girls. My dad's still around, but she's always out and about. And I love it when my mum says, I'm not wearing that. I'm not wearing that. That's something Nanny would have worn. I'm not wearing that. And because she has just point blank refused to become what society tells her she is.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's about the one that I find the saddest is when we've had people say, I wear black or navy because it makes me feel safe and unseen.
Oh, I get that a lot anyway when it comes to fashion.
I think that's a sad statement no matter who says it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that would have been you a while back.
But I and that is me, but not because I felt safe, but because I loved it.
Well, there's nothing wrong if you like black. There's nothing wrong with black and navy if you love black and navy. But if it's because of your relationship with yourself, I mean, the number of people who would say when we did pop-ups with the bias cut and say, oh, I love that, but I feel my family wouldn't like to see me in it, or when actually often it was
your family's not wearing it.
The family, and actually most of the time, then the comments when they did wear it, they would get reviews going, oh my god, the number of compliments, I've never been so many complimented.
Yeah.
So it's about it, but it's so hard. You know, people say to me, why do we feel crap as we get older? I'm like, well, we see probably more than 10,000 ads a day, right? If the majority are telling us that youth is better, youth is to be idolized, that you're less relevant, you're less valuable as you get older, all you are going to buy a stairless, all these things, of course you're going to feel rubbish. I mean, you have to have pretty thick skin not to listen to that.
I've got to be honest, I watched the TV today in my lunch hour, and there were three adverts for cremation.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying to you.
And I was really shocked, because I don't do daytime TV.
Because I was shocked. I watch daytime TV a lot, and it's always there.
But you could be sitting there just doing, editing.
Oh, I see it all the time.
I think it's horrendous.
All the time.
All the time, and I think, and it.
So if I'm home during the day, I must be that close to.
It's really bad.
But you know what? On the other side of it, I do also feel we need to normalize that part of it as well. As we say, is there's light and shade at every stage of life, right? And there are some inevitabilities, good and bad, and there are some sad. There are things that are totally uninevitable. But it's interesting. We've had this experience with my father-in-law lately, who is in his mid-80s, and he hasn't written a will and things like that. And we're trying to encourage him to do it. And the issue is his bias is saying, but his response to some things has been, but that's for older people. And we're saying, but actually, if you do these things, it's going to actually allow you to live more independently, with more dignity, all these things. So it's trying to I just feel like if they said, write a will from the age of 18, right, and just update it every few years whenever you have a major life event, it wouldn't be so stigmatized. And I do think we need to destigmatize some of these these more inevitable, not
Yeah.
good, but but things that are going to happen and actually can liberate you to live in a better way as you get older.
Yeah, because I do shy away from things like that only because of
Makes you feel uncomfortable.
yeah, it does.
Right. It does.
Yeah, but you're
But
right.
if it was normalised, and the same way that we want, when we get a mortgage,
Yeah.
can't have a mortgage without.
Yeah, no, that is so true.
You know.
Listen, I've got to wrap this up because I've just seen it's 7 o'clock, and I'm actually out for dinner with friends. I'm
I've got
meeting
to
them
go
at
to a tap
7:30.
class. I do an intergenerational tap class, so
I remember you saying last time. I love that. That's brilliant.
Perfect.
Listen, we haven't got through loads of statements and questions. I think because there's just so much to talk about on this subject.
I think we
But,
might have to do a part 2 at some point.
Yeah, definitely. But I know you mentioned to us about sort of hooking up on something. There's definitely something that can be done. We had a massive brainstorm, didn't we? So definitely, there's something that can be done, and just
space because
yeah,
there's
to make us all feel a bit more, represented. And thank you for what you do. I'm sure, like you were saying, a lot of people kind of came on tonight and were like, oh, but why are you so heavily involved in ageism? But you're right. What was that quote you said about the age again? Remind me.
That we're all age is a universal experience. That one.
Ages and then you went on to say, oh, I'll have to watch it back.
It's all my little pithy comments. That nothing on this earth is getting any younger.
No, that I do love. That I do love. That's very true. I remember that one. No, there was another one, but don't you worry. I will absolutely remember.
You'll come to it in the middle of the night.
Oh,
Ageism is the only ism that every person can experience. I can throw these out.
I love it. Love it. People are saying really interesting to listen to.
Hello,
Kerry. I hope you're well.
Thank you for having me.
Membership, yeah, brilliant. Not at all.
It remains to be said, I've been such a fan of yours for such a long time.
Oh, bless you. Thank you, sweetheart. And honestly, I know as well, I speak for many in this space, that, thank you for the work that you do, because actually you really do help us feel seen in such a saturated ageist.
Well, do you know what? I say this, area. My mum now complains she's got too many clothes. So if I managed to achieve that, then that was success.
Well, do you know what? That is success. Well done.
Yeah, well, definitely people are saying keep this going. So good. Yeah, we're definitely going to. I think the more conversations we have, listen, it may be that someone that works for a brand has actually listened to this tonight, may go in tomorrow and go, do you know what? Maybe we'll try it. Yeah. Maybe we'll try it and see how it goes. And I'm telling you now, if anyone is out there thinking that, we will do the content for free. Okay, we will do the content for free. Yeah, and then listen,
double dare.
Yeah, absolutely, and I mean that.
The challenge, everyone.
Yeah, definitely. We're really up for shouting. As long as it, as long as it resonates.
It's not a gimmick.
Yeah,
it's got to love.
It's got to resonate with our community, with our audience. Otherwise, there is no point doing it. We turn down pages, anyway, whatever. And so I'm telling you, if there's anyone out there, we'll do it for free as long as it resonates. And let's try it.
Absolutely. And one other thing to say as well, with some of the comments about representation, as I mentioned, we have a free content creator and modelling network, which you can sign up to via our link in our bio.
Okay.
Totally free for everyone to join, all ages. And then we partner members of our community and networks with brands. And it's all with the view to improving representation. Brilliant. So if any of you listening are like, and by the way, you can have zero experience or loads of experience. It doesn't matter. If you're interested in being a part of furthering
click that link. I've got to go. I've really got to go.
Bye. Have dinner.
Lots of love. Thank you, darling.
Bye, my love.
See you soon.
Bye.
Everybody, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. And I really hope that you take something from this. And we'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.